Okay, so I picked up this RX1 and I'm just wondering, does your RX1 sound like this? Hear the miss? Okay, so I'm going to show you what that is. Apparently they all have that clutch rattle too. Okay, so your ignition coils are, flip that over, right there, those are your coils. And you're going to take them out one at a time and you're going to look for rust or symptoms of arcing. They say moisture causes it, and it looks like this sled's had some moisture in it. If you look down in there, looks like we've had some water collecting. I had these plugs out and changed them already, and I noticed there was some rust on the plugs. The old plugs are right there, and that one there I noticed was rust on it, so there's been moisture in there, so that is a contributing cause. Okay, here's an assembled coil. I took this one apart. I took all of the stuff off, this sheath here, and you can see that it's got rust in there. And I think what happens is moisture gets in there and it corrodes, and then it starts rubbing on the coil, and I'm sure if I look close enough I'll probably find a crack in it maybe, or something like that. Or what they say could be happening is all of this rust is conductive, and then you get all this rust dust and it gets past the boot, and then you get arcing, and arc wants to travel up this way instead of going across the plug, because I guess it's easier to go across rust than it is to fire the spark plug. What we're going to do is, you see all that rust in there, I just spread this thing apart like that. I'm going to take a wire brush and I'm going to clean all the rust out of there. Yeah, this is how I'm doing it. Oh, sorry about that. Gotta get that in there again, and then we're going to try this again. Okay, so it should look something like that, and then what you want to do is take a little brake clean in there just to kind of get out any kind of dust that's in there, and then wipe it out so you get all of the dust out of there. And I already cleaned the coil off, so that's what it should look like, nice and clean. And then your coil should look like this. I've already wiped this off the best I can with brake clean. It's got a little bit of rust staining on it. But now what we're going to do is, here's my dielectric grease, and then we're just going to put a bunch of it in there. Just be super liberal with it and put a thick layer in there. Like, it's not going to hurt nothing, it's just dielectric grease. And you're going to lather this whole shield up like that. And then we're going to squish it back together like that round, kind of overlap it so it fits tight again. There, it feels pretty tight. Separate it a bit just to get it on. Okay, that's round. And then we're going to try to get it on there without scraping a bunch of it off, which it probably is going to do. Yeah, it did. That's okay, there'll still be a layer in there. And then this is what I'm doing. I'm just going to lather this whole thing in dielectric grease, just like that. And just like that, and then I'm going to lather just a thin layer on everything. And then the other thing you want to do is, that's where it connects to the spark plug there, pushes onto the plug. I'm going to push some in there. And you want to make sure you try to get inside of here really clean too. Like if I can get the light in the right spot, you can see that there's kind of some crappy, crusty, grungy stuff in there. You want to clean that out too, so you give it no chance to try to arc around that boot and back up. Okay, it should look pretty much like this when you're done. Get it cleaned. Try to get the light in there so you can see. It's hard to get the right angle. But I got it pretty clean. I got it wiped out, and then we're going to lather this thing up in dielectric grease too. I'm being pretty liberal with this stuff because I got a big tube of it, and it's not going to hurt nothing. It's just going to help insulate. Squish it all in there. And then we stick it back on the coil. And there, it's back together. And that's what your coil should look like when you're done. Looks like brand new, except it's a little bit shiny because it's got grease all over it. But this will prevent your arcing issue once you get rid of all that rust. Trying to get it all around that discolored seal there just to make sure we're good. And then I'm going to put that back on the sled. Okay, so now I'm going to do the rest of these other three. So to pull these boots off, you just kind of grab it. On my hands are slippery. And you pull it. You can feel it come off, and then you get the boot off. That's one boot off. And then you pull this ring here. This slides off like that. And then you got to get that sheath off of there, which is a little bit tricky. Don't be afraid to bend it. At first I was a little bit afraid of bending it too much because I wasn't sure I'd get it back to shape, but it just bends nice, so you just bend it. Man, this one's being a little tricky. There, that one's off. Oh, you see all the rust that fell out of it? Look at that. Look at all the rust on that. So yeah, I can see these things arcing, and it probably got into the boot. This one, I don't think this was my culprit. I think I only had one cylinder misfiring, but all that rust in there, we're to clean all of that up and then check this coil for cracks. Guys, I just took this wire brush like this and I wire wheeled it. And I'm just doing it lightly, do it lightly to take the little layer of rust off and the layer of crap off from that sheath. And then I looked at it and there was no crack, but I'm gonna continue on because this thing's made out of some kind of plastic, so it should be okay. And I'm just gonna lightly wire brush this one and brush off all of that excess stuff off of that tin sheath. Yeah, that looks pretty good now. It's still got a little bit of rust stain on it, and maybe we'll just clean that up with a little bit of brake clean. So I grab my brake clean, spray it on a rag, take my brake clean here, and then just kind of wipe it, and that'll get all the little particulates and everything out with some brake clean. And then have a look at it. Oh yeah, that looks way better. Okay, so I'm gonna lather this one up and put it together and then put it back in the sled. I think this was the worst one. I just wanted to show you this. Look at all the rust buildup on that. So the spark would come out here, and then it probably arcs back in on itself like that, and it climbs all of that rust because it's conductive. And I think that rust dust just ends up in the boots. Like somehow it gets into there and then it's able to arc around on itself. So yeah, hopefully this corrects the problem. I'm just going to show you this here quick. Look how clean that gets. You take all that junk off. This is what your coil should look like when it's all cleaned and greased up. And then you just put it back in the sled. And then blammo, back in the sled. One other thing here is just going to show you when you're putting your coil down, seating it down, you'll feel it touch the plug, and then you have to push it and then listen. You hear that? That's the little copper wire thing or whatever catching on the plug when it goes down. So anyways, I'm going to fire this thing up and give it a try. First fire, let's see what this thing sounds like now. Alright, time for a ride. Boy, that clutch rattle, I tell you, it's a little bit annoying. See how this thing, see if it's done misfiring now. It still misfires. Okay, on to the next thing. Clean the carburetors. Okay, so I went for a test ride and it's still got that misfire even with my laddered up coils. So what I did is I unplugged each one of these at a time and rode it past 30% throttle to see if it would continue misfiring on that cylinder, because it seemed to have power even on 3. And I narrowed it down to it's this cylinder here, and that's the one that's misfiring. And how I figured that out is after unplugging them one at a time, I then switched this coil with that coil, and then I unplugged that one over there just to see if it was the coil, and it misfired even worse. So that tells me this cylinder is misfiring, and this was a known good coil from that side over there. So when I plug it back in, it's still got that misfire. It's only misfiring on one cylinder, not 3. And then when I switched them, I had it misfire on 2, which drastically drops power. So I've got either a mechanical problem with this cylinder, or I've got a fuel problem in this carburetor. So I'm going to clean the carburetors next. Okay, so this is the carburetor of the misfiring cylinder, and you can see there's a little bit of crap built up there. Seems like the other ones don't have that, so I'm going to guess that there's something plugging up a main jet or something in this carburetor, so I'm going to have to take it off and clean it. Okay, so I got the carb assembly kind of removed here. It's got coolant lines going to it, so there's one here, and then there's one, the output is right, I can't point to it and hold this at the same time, that one right there. So you need to clamp those 2 lines, and I happen to have those clamp tools, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clamp right here, like that, and then I'm going to do the same to the other line. I'm going to remove the lines from the carburetors. You'll get some drip out of the carburetors, but that's okay. I don't want to drain the cooling system to remove the carbs. Okay, so the next thing you got to remove is your fuel lines. I'm going to remove them off the fuel pumps and just leave the lines on the carburetors. Okay, so I got the bolts taken off the carburetor that was a problem. Oh, look at that. All that green junk there. Oh, that main jet looks like it's totally plugged off. Well, it's plugged off quite a lot actually, so I'm going to say that that's our problem with our misfire. Here's what it looks like when it's clean and I've cleared it out completely, and I got the bowl here. I need to get some scrub brushes or something, because even the carb cleaner is not I let that soak for like half an hour, and I kind of scrubbed it with a screwdriver inside that port to get most of it out, and it's like that stain there. You need to scrub it off, and I just can't get it off without proper brushes. So it's clean enough to put back together though now, and it'll run. Okay, I'm on my second bowl here, and I was just having a hard time getting it off, and the reason I was having a trouble, it was difficult getting the bowl off. Like, I feel like I had to pry it off. They got an O-ring that wraps right around this top jet here, and then that jet fits right inside of that little cylinder there. And I think, I'm looking at it, I'm like, why would you need that? I've never seen that on other sleds, like my other sleds that I have, but this is a mountain sled. So my way of thinking is, I think Yamaha is kind of genius. So you got your bowl, it would sit like that in the carburetor, and forward is that way. And I think what happens is if you're going up a hill and your sled's doing that and you're going straight up, they know that fuel is going to pool at the back of the bowl there, so they built that little channel in there at the bottom of the bowl so that it sucks fuel straight out of there. And if they didn't have that O-ring there, that part of the bowl might go dry, and it might starve you of fuel when you're on your way up the hill. That's just my guess. I think that's why they did that, and that makes sense to me. I mean, if you're climbing a crazy hill like that, you know, all your fuel in this bowl is going to be pooled at the back here, so that just makes sense. I gotta hand it to Yamaha for thinking about stuff like that. I like cylinder number 3's got some gum happening on it too. So I got my carburetors back together. They're all clean and everything to go, ready to go. And I just wanted to show you this one other thing. I had one of these little screws here on the carburetor there. They didn't want to come out. I rounded the screw off with the screwdriver. So I took this Dremel bit like this, and I just cut a flat blade into it, cut it nice and deep, and then I was able to get it out with a flat blade. If you don't have one of these little Dremel tools, I recommend you get one if you're having trouble with stuff like that. Oh yeah. That's a lot better. I'd say that problem is fixed. Okay, well, it definitely runs better. I went for a rip around the lake, and I can't believe how fast this thing is for being naturally aspirated. Like, I know it's 1000 cc and all that, but it definitely rips. Like, it rips really good. I'm super impressed with it. I can't even imagine what this thing would be like if it was turbocharged and had twice as much horsepower. Anyway, if you like this video, please hit like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.